Well, thank you everyone for joining the Citizens Institute on Rural Design, CIRD, as you'll probably hear quite often throughout this presentation, informational webinar. It's hosted by the Housing Assistance Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, and To Be Done Studio. The agenda for today is going to be what is CIRD? The mission, history, and goals, local design workshop, learning design cohort, CIRD program eligibility, how to apply, and a Q&A session after. And before we begin, I just wanted to introduce the three partners, groups that are working to make CIRD amazing. First, to start off, we have the HAC team, the Housing Assistance Council, with myself, Hillary Pressigan. Pronouns are she, her, and hers. I virtually work on the ancestral lands of the Potawatomi people here in Holland, Michigan, so right on Lake Michigan. I also have with me Amanda Laporte, as well as Stephen Sugg, and Shantiria Clarkston, who's the director of our training and technical assistance. She's located in Atlanta. She's not here today, but she sends everybody well wishes and hello. I am the community placemaking program manager here. Stephen is the special projects manager located in DC, and Amanda is our applied community and economic development Stevenson Center Fellow, that's also in DC. And next up is NEA. Courtney, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. And Hillary, I'm not sure if you're aware, the slides are not up in presentation mode.
Oh, let's see here. Oh. Does this work?
That's better. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Sorry, everybody. Well, I will not repeat myself, but yay, slide one. Our agenda. And here's the team with all the detail I shared just a moment ago. All right, that's all you, Courtney.
Thanks, Hillary. Hi, everybody. I'm Courtney Spearman. I'm with the National Endowment for the Arts. I manage the Design Grant Program, and I'm currently the Acting Director of Design and Creative Placemaking. Jen Hughes is also part of our team. She's a Senior Advisor to the Chairman on Partnerships, Expansion, and Innovation. She's the former Director of this program. And I've been working on the CIRD program for about 5 years now, and excited to share more about that with you all shortly.
Great, thank you, Courtney. And next up will be To Be Done Studio.
Hey everyone, pleasure to be on here with you. My name's Omar Hakim. I'm the founder and principal of To Be Done Studio. We're a design firm that focuses on social and environmental equity. We also obviously do have a large focus on rural design. We've been a part of the program, or I've been a part of the program for about 5 years, and I'm excited to be working with you all, and hopefully you find this informative. And I'll pass it to my colleague, Candace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Candace Maloney Franklin. I work with To Be Done Studios. Like Omar, I'm originally from the Caribbean on a small island, so rural design is a huge thing that I hold dear to my heart, and just really excited to dive in with you guys today.
Hey everyone, my name is Brandon Robles, and I'm the newest member to have joined TBD Studio. I just graduated this May from Virginia Tech, and I'm really excited to be part of the team and be part of the be part of the CIRD process.
Wonderful, thank you. So just a quick webinar reminder before we go any further is that this webinar is being recorded. Please keep yourself on mute during the presentation. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat room, so the Q&A box. And during our Q&A portion of the webinar, we plan on answering those questions. But if something pops into your noggin while we're chatting during Q&A, please just use the raised hand icon. And we will call on you that way, or you can always in real time add that question that you have if you want to via Q&A chat. If you're having any IT issues, please reach out to Amanda or myself, Hillary, in the Zoom chat room. once I have it up and running. And just to let everybody know that if you want to gain access to a recording of this webinar, we will have it on our YouTube page, which we will be sharing once our chat room is up and running, with the links that are links to that channel, as well as the other resources that we're sharing. And if for some reason I am unable to get the chat room going, within the Zoom post webinar email that goes out, so tomorrow is when you'd get it in your inbox, we will also have all the links shared there as well. So there is the backup to my backup. All right. It's all you, Courtney.
Thank you, Hillary. Oh, am I unmuted now? Yes. Okay, great. Well, greetings, everybody. Great to talk to you today. I'm going to do just a little bit of an introduction to the Citizens Institute on Rural Design, or CIRD. The program is a leadership initiative of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with the Housing Assistance Council. Additional design support for the program comes from To Be Done Studio. Focusing on populations with 50,000 or less, CIRD's goal is to enhance the quality of life and economic vitality of rural America through planning, design, and creative placemaking. We have 4 primary goals in the program. One is building design capacity in rural communities. Another is introducing creative placemaking, arts, culture, and design strategies as drivers of economic development. A third goal is facilitating a network of rural communities for design exchange, design idea exchange, and peer learning. And fourth is preparing communities to be ready and competitive for arts and design related state and federal funding. Next slide, please. Since 1991, CIRD has provided design assistance to more than 120 rural communities in all regions of the United States, empowering residents to leverage local and regional assets in order to guide the civic development and future design of their own communities. Next slide, please. CIRD is driven by the idea that design can be a powerful tool for rural communities to build on existing assets and improve quality of life, economic vitality, and experience of place. Through this program, we've learned that communities know their own needs best and that the best ideas come from communities themselves. CIRD's approach to rural design combines community-driven aspirations with the technical and design skills necessary to move from an idea to reality. We also know that good rural design can take many different forms and show up at many different scales. CIRD's projects range from small interventions like murals or pocket parks to larger initiatives like creating a downtown revitalization district or pedestrian safety corridor. With the guidance of architects, Main Street planners, landscape architects, transportation planners, and other field-related folks, along with CIRD program staff, our programs introduce a wide range of rural design strategies that can help a community address their design challenges. Next slide, please. On this slide, you can see, some statistics and numbers, and also a map. The map shows communities that have participated in our 2 primary programs, a series of customized multi-day local design workshops for specific communities, and a design learning cohort program, which we started 4 years ago, that engages a spectrum of community leaders in peer learning and rural design skill building. We also host webinars several times a year and offer all kinds of community design resources through our website. Now I'll pass it over to Be Done Studio to talk more about rural design and our workshop program.
Great, thank you, Courtney. So what is rural design? Well, rural design is just design in rural communities. I think the question you all are probably wondering is what types of design efforts are applicable to the CIRD program, maybe what it constitutes design or not. So I'm happy to run through that. But the high level that I want you to take away from this webinar is that really, if it's a design challenge, if it exists in the public realm, if it's community oriented, if it has some kind of spatial quality, it is applicable to this program. So that's kind of up to you to pose a design challenge and we can review it. So next slide, please. So we'll just kind of go through some examples. Some of those may include historic preservation and adaptive reuse of community buildings. That could also be, we've worked on converting and reusing churches, grocery stores, schools, design of affordable housing. Oops, hey, Hillary, slides went off. We're looking at the webinar chat. So I'll just keep going. Things that, great, thank you. So quality affordable housing. If you have affordable housing challenge, we can help you kind of think about that, maybe come up with some housing typologies. Obviously towards the ideal of equitable housing that supports, you know, all different groups of people. A lot of people have applied for projects kind of in the Main Street realm, like how do we reimagine our Main Street? What are tools that we could implement on the streetscape level, landscape level, signage, and maybe even facade improvements. So we've worked in all different kinds of categories like that. If there's a recreational trail, mobility, active transportation, or any kind of effort like that that links to economic development or conservation, that's something that we can support. So that could look like bringing in landscape architects, conservationists, ecologists to figure out what are the right kind of mix of trails and ecological resources. What you know, what are the other types of facilities that might be on a site like that? And obviously, you know, thinking about it holistically as to what are the other kind of pieces of it to make those things work well. Next slide, please. So civic and public spaces. So how do we create spaces for public expression, local identity? It could be a community center, a concert hall, a park that has play opportunities, anything that is a public or civic space, again, kind of community oriented. That's what we mean by that, just kind of like, is it supporting the community at large? We talked a little bit about Main Street. I think healthy food systems is a design challenge that comes up a lot. And just, I'll use this as an example. We cannot design a food system for you. So if it's about system design, about distribution, that may not be a great fit for CIRD. But if it has a spatial implication that links to food, that's a great example. We worked on a fish market in St. Croix, farmers markets, arts corridors that link to creating opportunities for the culinary arts to be shown off and shared with people. That's a great example. And anything that may relate to may relate to kind of heritage tourism. I know that's there's some great examples of that in the kind of southern end of Mid-Atlantic, Kentucky. You all have some great examples. Virginia. So what are those pieces? How do we create, what are the spatial implications that link different heritage tourism opportunities? If it's more of a kind of heritage tourism economic development strategy set, I think that's maybe not as spatial as if something were to actually have maybe a wayfinding station, an info station, something like that would get it a little closer to what CIRD could support you with. Great, next slide, please. So how do we do this? Well, the awarded applicants, a group of the awarded, subgroup of the awarded applicants will be awarded with design, the opportunity to do a design workshop. So we will kind of deep dive on your design topic. The host community will get a $6,000 stipend, which we hope will help support the workshop and maybe a little bit of someone's time that's helping plan it. We will bring in technical assistance through one-on-one time with you. We'll come out and do a design, like a site visit. We'll do a actual 3-4 day design workshop and a bunch of virtual engagement stuff to make sure that we are able to really come forward with some design ideas that are informed by community members, by the most critical stakeholders to the work. I will also say that we have some resources to bring in additional outside experts, whether they be local to your community or outside, depending on what's the best fit. And oftentimes the communities that we're working with really help us guide who's the best fit for them, what are the other resources, and we have the financial capacity to bring them in and have them help support the project, and hopefully be involved on a longer term basis to help you carry the work forward. Next slide, please. So this is just a high level design workshop timeline. I'm not expecting you to read this. It's too small and there's too much information on it, but the high level of it is as I said, is a little bit of a bookended process. We'll have a kickoff meeting with you. We kind of dive into who's involved, what the challenge is. We try to understand that. We'll get there and do a site visit. In the meantime, between then and when we actually show up for the design workshop, we'll be working with you on project plans, virtual engagement stuff. We'll come and do a workshop. We'll try and get as many people there as we can, come up with some design ideas, bring those back to our studios, and then we'll send you back a more compiled, completed design package that you can hopefully use for fundraising purposes, project budgeting, implementation going forward. So that's the kind of quick version of what a workshop is. Next slide, please. So we'll just run through a couple examples that we did in the last cycle. This was in Keene, New Hampshire. It was a very wide road right-of-way and a bike trail, and we helped them reimagine it into a corridor for the arts and artists. What did that look like? Streetscape improvements, altering and softening, buffering parking spaces, the creation and design of a large arts market hall, and then of course transportation linkages to the greater kind of town network. I will say that this helped the city allocate funds for some of this work to happen, as they had also received funding from the state to do some street improvements on their main street because it was a state highway. Next slide, please. So this is the fish market that I was mentioning in St. Croix, USVI. This was a market that was once really a great center point for the community and needed to be kind of reimagined because it had become used for some other uses that weren't the community members were not as excited about. And we also wanted to kind of balance the natural resources, Department of Natural Resources work that they need to have fishers coming in and out, testing and making sure that the fish catch is appropriate, but also how our artisans, vendors, and community members using the space. So we spent a lot of time really making sure that everyone could access the space. A lot of community engagement on this project, but hopefully the outcome was worthwhile. Next slide, please. And this is the last example I'll share. This was the community arts center that was linked to a local school in Spring Grove, Minnesota. They needed to expand their school facility. There was a church lot that was empty, or that was not being, the building was no longer utilizable. It needed to be torn down. So rather than the school expanding their high school and the town building a community center, this was really about bringing those two institutions together and creating a shared space for the arts that would also benefit the town and the other nonprofits and arts groups that were in the need of space. So it was kind of a win-win, hopefully, for both groups. And that's it. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Omar. Really appreciate it. So moving on to the other part of the CIRD programming is our design learning cohort, which is, I believe, if I'm correct, Courtney, this is probably this upcoming cycle is our third or fourth.
Third.
Thank you much.
Yep, third cohort.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is with the workshop that's always been part of CIRD's programming, but the design learning cohort is something that's fairly new, but doing really great, impactful work. You can see approximately 20 communities will be invited to participate in the virtual training and design planning, community engagement, and facilitation techniques. And just to let you know, within those 20 communities is also the workshop communities as well. So with those workshop communities, they're going to be getting the cohort on top of the workshop experiences that Omar shared along with those examples. Along with that, a series of online sessions and public webinars led by a nationally recognized field of experts tailored to engage cohort members in active peer learning. And with the online learning sessions, that is going to be a monthly type of webinar series that cohort, which includes, again, the workshop to come together monthly, either to have private or for public facing webinars happening, as well as TA, open, virtual office hours as well, one-on-one, et cetera, trying to give and have the most accessible experience with subject matter experts in this field, along with our HAC staff and our team here at CIRD. Other things is the technical assistance. I was just kind of mentioning, like the office hours, one-on-one coaching, and the resources as well, adding those, tools to your toolbox, so to speak, with rural design placemaking. Additional opportunities to socialize and share best practices and experiences with rural peers from around the country is another big part of the cohort. Though we are mostly virtual with the cohort, we will be taking part in the annual HAC conference, which is going to be happening, I believe the last week of October, I think the 24th through the 27th. In DC, and it'll be HAC's first in-person conference since COVID, so that's exciting. And it's going to be an amazing networking opportunity for you to meet the other cohorts and workshop communities as well. And it's just great to get that peer-to-peer interaction, which is, I know, a really big focal point and a big draw for a lot of community members who apply and get accepted into the program. It is, and through that, it's great to connect rural design and the National Endowment for the Arts via CIRD with also with HAC's broader rural development network. Rural design enriches our work across rural housing and community development, and the design learning cohort is a big part of such. And with this also being a virtual space where strong networking and peer-to-peer interactions can happen, it's really hard to overstate the power of a peer network. CIRD's partners share ideas, successes and struggles with one another, and they consistently tell us that the connection to peers is one of the best parts of the program. So as Omar shared with his workshop timeline, we also have a cohort timeline, and it's just an example. I know that you can see, that there's a May 2023, but we just wanted to share an example of what the cohort would look like, and it's a summary of what I've just shared with the beginning of the program, with doing, tentative, CIRD HAC conference to the final quick pitch, end of program, and then the virtual webinar event goal. So being able to do that all within an 18-month program period sounds like a lot, but with the support that you get from our team, it's going to be a great experience through and through and worthwhile. So jumping in from just sharing about the program, I guess real quick, Courtney or Omar, do you have anything to add to the cohort before I start talking about eligibility?
I'll just add one thing. I mean, the high level goal here is to still support your design challenge and to bring as many resources to your design challenge as possible. So as we're developing the curriculum, we're probably bound to change, adjust a little bit. And also we do have some one-on-one opportunities to support you with whatever you're kind of up against at that point in time in your project.
Thanks, Omar. Okay. So jumping right into it, the CIRD program eligibility, you can find this information as well on our website. But just to share here for the webinar, applicants must be part of a rural or tribal community of 50,000 or less. That is rural in character. Identify a specific design challenge to address through the CIRD program. Be eligible, excuse me, be able to participate in CIRD as indicated in the participation expectations below, as well as plan a workshop with CIRD staff during a designated period of programming. And that is more directed towards those who apply for our workshop program, part of the CIRD program. And when you think like rural in character, what exactly does that mean? Also on our website that I believe Amanda's going to probably share in the chat is that we have a breakdown or a description of what rural eligibility or rurality is. And that is super helpful document to review as well. If you meet all of the criteria above, we invite the following entities to apply. So municipal, tribal, county governments, local nonprofit organizations, which also include, but not limited to, Main Street, organizations, arts centers, preservation groups, historical societies, or chambers of commerce working in rural areas, regional planning organizations working in rural areas as well, and also university community design centers or university agricultural extension offices with close ties to the community presenting the design challenge. And finally, partnerships of entities listed above are encouraged to apply. If you have any questions on that, of course, feel free to reach out to us. I know we're going to be sharing in the chat our email address. So if the bullet points we just shared, you're still not 100% sure, by all means, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help.
Hillary, if I could just add one little thing. You mentioned a minute ago about applying to the cohort or to the workshop. The application is the same for both, and we'll talk a little more about the application process, but you submit a single application. If you're interested only in the cohort, you can indicate that. If you're interested in the workshop, you'll automatically be considered for the cohort as well, and are expected to participate in the cohort if you're selected for a workshop.
Wonderful. Thank you, Courtney. That was great. So moving on from that, we have our application process timeline we wanted to share with everybody on this call. So March 2nd was when the request for applications, or the RFA, opened. The deadline is going to be April 21st, 2023 at 11:59 ET. Finalists will be notified and interviewed in early May. And then the 2023-2024 CIRD cohort workshop communities will be announced in late May. And we will be launching and doing our workshop site visits beginning process starting in late June. So after this webinar is completed, as I've shared right at the start of this webinar, we will be having a recording of this on our YouTube channel, but we also want to reiterate, we can definitely do one-on-one calls, emails, as you can see, it's listed here on this slide, but we also have one more virtual event that is open to anybody interested. It is going to be our virtual office hours. You can come on in on Tuesday, April 11th, between noon and 5 p.m. ET. Come and go as you please, pop in, we'd love to see you. It's our office hours for anybody to ask us questions related to the application, any clarification on programming or our expectations, or if you're hitting a snag with a question that we asked in the application, we can walk through that with you. Yeah, and there's no registration needed. So with the link that we'll share in the chat room for the CIRD application virtual office hours, you just click on that link and it will take you straight to Zoom, and to where myself and Stephen, for sure, my fellow colleague, will be hanging out that day. Looking forward to talking with everyone.
So you can copy that link right now if you want, drop it on your calendar from noon to 5 on April 11th, Eastern time, and have that pop up and remind yourself.
So here it is, how to apply. Right now, Amanda's going to be sharing the links and information links to what I'll be sharing. You check out our website, the How to Apply page. Highly recommend reviewing the request for applications, the RFA document, which is on that same How to Apply webpage. And again, can't say it enough, we're here to help you. Please reach out to CIRD staff at cird@ruralhome.org and or take part of our virtual office hours on the 11th. And finally, there is the apply link that is through SurveyMonkey, and you can just jump right on in once you review the RFA and have a clear idea and vision of what your design project's going to be.
There was a question in the chat from Jessica about, is there a link to the application? Those have been posted here. Just want to note, we really encourage you to read the request for applications and the How to Apply page before you dive into the SurveyMonkey, the actual application. Filling out the application is something you have to kind of sit down and do in more or less one sitting. You can't save it and return to it since it's a SurveyMonkey. So definitely recommend that you read the materials, prepare your questions or your responses to the questions in advance. As Hillary has said, reach out to us with any questions. And be prepared that when you sit down to submit, that you've got all your materials in hand.
Yeah, and thank you for reminding me of that, Courtney, because it just popped into my head too, to share that best practice when doing that, because with SurveyMonkey, we can't just save it where you left off. Just create like a Word document with all the questions and copy paste the questions into that Word document and answer it there in your Word doc. It'll also help you with your grammar, be able to, sift through some of your ideas and brainstorm and then have a final product. So you can just copy and paste your answers into SurveyMonkey, and, God forbid, if like you lose internet connection or your computer all of a sudden just goes dark and restarts randomly, you still have that Word doc, so all of your work is not lost. So it's just a really good, just best practice move to use a Word doc before going into the actual survey itself. So yeah, we are at the point of the webinar where it is a Q&A time. So I believe, Stephen.
Yes.
All right, all you, sir.
Wonderful. So far, the only question I have seen from the chat or the Q&A is one that's probably best directed to TBD Studio. It was about, please describe the local professional, the folks who are hired, the design professionals and community development professionals who are hired to help with the local design workshops. And I think, Omar, you are perhaps the best qualified to take that on.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that it really depends on the project and what's being needed. We can also hire more than one person. So for instance, if you're working on a project and you really needed some support to tackle the question of like, well, how do we set up a community land trust? Well, we could hire and bring in an expert on community land trust, or a lawyer that specializes in those types of topics, setting those types of businesses and organizations up. We've brought in other local architects and planners. Sometimes those people have already been a part of the project, and this is an opportunity to keep them engaged and provide them some compensation for their time. And then hopefully, ideally support them in if there's a great relationship between them and the community that we're working with, move the project forward. We've brought in experts in creative placemaking, community engagement, transportation. So it really is about, once we get into the project, what are the other topics that need some support, and who's the right fit? And that's kind of the basic parameters, but what that person's expertise is very open. Did I answer your question?
I think that's pretty good. You did pretty well, Omar. Thank you. And I'll just go through the webinar chat. We have another one that says, for the learning cohort, would be okay or appropriate to have a less specific spatial problem. I could use the most support in thinking through big picture community engagement issues and around multiple community development topics. And that's a really common question that we've taken on, because a design challenges change, they're evolving. We don't expect every community to be a local design challenge expert. I would love for TBD and NEA to weigh on this as well. the Housing Assistance Council, we spend a lot of time working with the cohort directly and also bringing our broader community development and housing resources to these groups to the extent that we can. And it's always good to have your design challenge whittled down as much as possible when you apply. Let us know what you're thinking about. But with that said, we know that local politics change. We know that design challenges change. We know that community support changes. So we're inherently flexible in doing this work. But the more that you can focus in on a challenge, the better we can help you in general. But I would love for Courtney to try that as well.
I got distracted. I'm sorry. I was responding to a chat.
Sure, no problem. But basically, yes, we're basically asking if they have some broader community concerns. They're really not there on a design challenge yet. And
yeah, that's a great fit for the cohort. I think a lot of the types of community engagement, partnership, the kinds of things that we cover in the design training, it's about design, but it's also about how do you engage partners? How do you build trust with community, maybe engaging community members who aren't always part of the conversation? How do you raise money? How do you find support, financial and otherwise, for your projects? And doing that in collaboration with other communities who are maybe going through similar issues or challenges. Certainly, it's important to come with some idea of a particular challenge in your community that has to do with design. That could be place-based. In general, our program is very place-based, as you probably picked up on, engaging architects and landscape architects and planners. Certainly, we've had questions around whether doing something that's more around design thinking or service design could be a fit. And I think we'd be interested in understanding more about what those needs are. But I think in general, thinking through what are physical things in your community, what are place-based things in your community that a program like these kinds of engagements could help you develop or think about. You'll need something to put into the application that addresses something about your place.
Absolutely.
I'd add just one thing to that. If you have multiple topics, I think coming forward with maybe what you feel like is the most pertinent topic, and then we can engage on that. And if there's some shifting that needs to happen or some adjustment, we can do that in the application processes or after, you may be awarded, as long as it sticks to the kind of general intent of the application. But a laundry list of all the topics is harder for the panelists who review our applications to kind of say, yes, this is a design challenge that CIRD can bite off. And I'll just add, also part of your question was about engagement. No matter what, we will be engaging with you, stakeholders, people close to the project, and that often is going to bring up many topics, but we'll try to hear those, and we'll try and focus down on what is that kind of most pertinent design outcome of those topics and kind of concerns that we might be hearing in the engagement process.
Our next question was from Andrew. He says, for the local design workshop program, is there an estimated cost or value associated with the on-site team visits for the local workshops? They're planning on that. And I think, Omar, you're invaluable. I cannot quantify your team's value, but if you want to give it a shot, go for it.
Depends how well you feed us.
Okay,
we'll
that's right.
Longer. No, we put a lot into it. I think if you were to hire an architect to do what we do, I would put our time around $30,000 to $40,000 in equivalent fee, plus adding the resource team and all the work they often do. So that could be somewhere in the $10,000 to $20,000 kind of equivalent of fee base. That if you want to just think about it in terms of dollars and cents, that might be a range. When we dive in and we get the work done that needs to get done. So we don't really stop at like a specific number. We just kind of work with you to get the challenge to a certain place, so.
That's great. And one thing I will emphasize, that whether you're in the design learning cohort or the local design workshops, one of the things we really excel at, I think, as a program is getting resources to the communities that meet your needs. So we love sending other funding sources, whether it's from the USDA or HUD or private sector, That's something we are as an entity at CIRD, we're equipped to do. And we really enjoy sharing those opportunities and helping our partners apply for other funding. That's one of the core goals of the program. So that's one of the, also probably the core benefits of the program as well, because everyone needs more resources to carry out this work. And the next question is from Chris. It says, will this be appropriate for planning a new rural low-income plat, including single-family, multifamily, park community center, and small space for a local store? It's probably a TBD question again.
Depends on what you mean by planning a plat. Are you talking about like actually creating a platted out subdivision? If it's that, I think that is probably more. So the work we do is really in the schematic design kind of realm. If you need a plat CAD file, that can be inputted into your municipal information database, that's beyond what CIRD does. And you should hire a civil engineer to do that. But if you're if you want us to help you think through a multi-use community center that may have different components, including housing, community center, park, store, that's something we could do. We could provide some site plans, some renderings, but just because you used the word plat, I just want to make sure we're clear is that once you get in the world of construction documents, civil engineering, site plans, and that kind of stuff, that's beyond the scope of the program.
I'll just add though, if you're looking for helping develop this concept and you're looking for how to engage the local community, the region in the ideas and the, contributing to the concept for this, I think that could be a great fit for this program.
Next question is, we have a coal ash and landfill issue along the Kalamazoo River. Would this be an area of expertise? And I think that
depends on what you want to do with it.
Yes, yeah. That's probably need a little bit more detail there.
Yeah, if you're thinking of, if you're needing support on how to reimagine a brownfield site that is, right next to your community, and you want some support in thinking through it as a park, community hub, whatever it is, we can help you do that. If it's about environmental remediation, I'm just exaggerating because I know you're probably not asking us this, but just to try and set some demarcations up, we want to find new ways to reuse it. Yeah, so I think that is something that we could help you think through, and we would happily bring in any other experts that may support the specific issues on the site, but probably not getting into the kind of environmental remediation stuff. You should have an environmental engineer work on it.
Okay, and we can take a few more questions if folks have any.
Oh, also, Stephen, there are a few questions actually in the chat itself.
Okay. Chat. I think we got most of those, but okay, great. And I think
we've answered those.
Most of those are, thankfully. But if
yeah, some people cross-posted too, which is fine.
Yes.
There had been a question posted earlier around the timing for the workshops. I think Valerie had posted that, and I think Omar answered in the text, but the timeline for the local design workshop in terms of wanting it to be complete, it would definitely be before the end of 2024. So depending on timing for when people are ready to start, and sometimes weather and climate come into play in terms of when it makes sense to do the workshops, but we would definitely want to have everything wrapped up by the end of 2024.
So for awarded applicants, we would also, we would meet with you and talk about when are also the key milestones for your project and what's the best time to fit it in. We can't promise that we can be there exactly based on everyone's timeline. That's as part of the program, but we'll do our best to be appropriate and helpful within your timeline. So some of the communities that we'll be working with will probably say, hey, we really need something by the end of this calendar year. And so we can get you further forward. And some people say, we're probably not ready to start until next February, or this coming February, I should say. And so we'll push them back a little bit and we'll get everybody kind of teed up in a kind of order that makes sense.
And the next question is, we have a river walk and are looking at putting in an amphitheater. Is this something that we could get design help for, essentially?
Yeah, I think that is a great example of something we could help with.
Thanks. And the next question, Courtney, you might be the best prepared to take on that because you know of NEA's broader design programs.
Sure. Yeah, Karen was asking about public funds or public programs available to address suburban design and placemaking. In terms of technical assistance like this, the EPA may have some programs that fit. They do some different things. There's several different programs they have that are place-based, that are not necessarily rural, although many rural communities are part of those. Some of those are around broadband, some of those are around local food, some of those are around, there's another one, I want to say climate. In any case, you might look at the EPA programs, and I'll try to find that link in a second. The program that Omar had linked to, Karen, the AIA program, American Institute of Architects program, it's I guess technically it's private, but it is definitely operated as a nonprofit. So that could be worth looking at. And they don't have the same kind of constraints that we do around geographic size or population size. Another thing to look at certainly would be grant opportunities. Those would not necessarily provide the same technical assistance. But the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, my day job, my full-time job, we have several programs that could be a fit for this kind of work. The Our Town program, which is our creative placemaking grant program, could be a fit. Depending on the nature of the work that you're doing, perhaps our design program and grants for arts projects. So I'm happy to drop my email here if you have a specific question about grant funding that would be happy to continue separately in different conversation, or you can reach out to the CIRD team and they can forward it on. Maybe that's probably easiest for keeping up with everybody.
Perfect. I think the time is about up. We have time for one more question if one comes in quickly. Otherwise, we'll go to the wrap-up, Hillary.
Sounds good. Thanks, Stephen. And I just shared in the chat for everybody that we do have a CIRD newsletter. It goes out quarterly, or if something big pops up, we like to share it with our community via newsletter and social media. But if you were interested in just keeping track with us and see what we're up to, please, click on the link and join us. Oh, it looks like there is a question from Ellen. Is this a 100% match with the $6,000 stipend?
I can answer that one real quick. Yes, it is, but it can be met a lot of different ways. So you can certainly bring cash to the table, but staff or volunteer time, other costs associated with hosting the event, rental space or donated rental space, meeting materials, things like that, those can all be used to meet the match. So, our team can certainly work with you to identify ways to meet the match if the $6,000 cash approach is a constraint. And I think most communities do match with those kinds of staff and volunteer contributions. That's the majority of where that comes from.
Yeah, and would you also call that in kind?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh. Yeah, and thank you, Stephen, for adding that. Yeah, we do everything possible to make sure that the match is not a burden, financial or administratively. And that's 100% true. Thank you for sharing that too, Stephen. Okay. Yeah, any other questions? Right. And again, do not hesitate to reach out. Like as soon as you get off the call and you're like, oh my gosh, I should have asked them this question. Please, definitely write down our CIRD@ruralhome.org email. Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Stephen. He just shared it to everyone as well. Definitely check out our website to get a little more detailed information. And yes, definitely check out our RFA description for this application and for the program. It helps with a lot of information, but again, don't hesitate to reach out. April 11th, we will have our open virtual office hours. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out.
And the deadline is April 21st, midnight. Eastern time.
11:59 if we're gonna be picky.
If that seems intimidating, look at the RFA because there's not actually that many questions. We tried to make this very accessible. So definitely look at the application questions before you say that that's too soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing your applications.
Yes, definitely.